Welcome, it's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Over this half hour, we'll be speaking with a few individuals that are focusing on protecting children. We'll be speaking with Alison Arngrim. You know her from Little House on the Prairie. She was recently in Sacramento testifying on a bill to protect kids. But first, we start with Betty Yee. She is a member of the Board of Equalization. She is a candidate for controller. That election will be held in 2014. And I want to speak with you about identity theft.
Yes.
I have been a victim of identity theft in two very frustrating ways. I had someone steal a check from the mail and wash it. I had someone collect my information under the guise of paying me as a freelancer and then take out credit card applications. It's very violative.
It is, and it's more pervasive than we think. It actually affects about 1.6 million Californians every year.
And I can't imagine nationwide what that does as well.
It's tremendous.
If you can, Betty, give us a sense exactly what is identity theft?
Identity theft is when there are attempts to try to obtain our very, very personal information. They could be social security numbers, financial account numbers, your name, and using them essentially by people who are pretending to be you. Yes.
And I was the fool who gave out my personal information because I thought that this individual was setting up an account to pay me for some articles I was writing.
Yes.
But it was not.
And that sometimes is the way that that information gets obtained is through very, very innocent means. Yes.
What's stunning to me is that children can be victims of identity theft.
Absolutely.
And I have to tell you, my eldest daughter, who's 11, recently received in the mail. It wasn't a credit card application, but it was something that a child should not receive.
Yes.
It was something along, some type of solicitation, and I thought, oh no.
That's
something
your cue.
should not be, this is not right.
That's right, that's right.
How are children becoming victims of identity theft?
You know, we are looking now, particularly after the new school year starts and children's identities are being shared, you know, whether it's school records, joining sports teams, that kind of thing. And generally not a social security number, but certainly their names and their addresses and perhaps some personal information. But that is the time where a lot of information about children are shared, and parents really need to be super cautious at that point in time.
And what's so stunning about the theft of children's identification is so often the children and or the parents don't know. There's no reason to know.
And it could be many, many years before it's even detected. You're absolutely right.
They take the social security number and they create this facade of a person.
Yes, yes. So social security number is a person's entree to a lot of different things. Opening a bank account, being able to obtain loans, being able to obtain employment. And so these are all things that may not be evident until many, many years later.
So if our children receive, for example, in the mail, a pre-approved credit offer.
Yes, yes.
What does that say to you?
You know, it's a pretty good sign that your child's social security number has been obtained illegally. Yes, absolutely.
And please keep going.
Well, and really the first step that parents should take is to be able to understand how that information was obtained, but our credit agencies are really the best place to begin to report fraud.
And we're going to put on the screen the telephone numbers of the three key credit agencies: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion.
Yes.
And what you need to do is you need to contact those credit agencies just to make sure that your child's really what you want is they should not have a file.
That's correct. That's correct. And so when you call the credit agencies, credit bureaus, please give the child's name, social security number, the specific information about what you received in the mail. And if there's no file found, that's great news. It means nobody's really trying to use that information to develop an identity for themselves. The bad news is that if there is a file under your child's name, then that is essentially fraud has been committed. So there will be a fraud alert placed on the file.
So would there be a file if you had a bank account for your child? That shouldn't cause a file.
No.
What's nice, I must say, and again, this is anecdotal, it's my personal experience, but when I've contacted the credit bureaus for some issues, they were on it.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure people have other horror stories, but they were absolutely on it.
And they will flag your accounts, and they will be vigilant about looking at activity on those files.
The key for all of us, adults, children, is we got to protect our social security number.
Absolutely. We have instances where the child and the parents will receive information for taxes that may be due by someone who has obtained a social security number and actually obtain employment. And so there will be tax obligations down the road if that continues to be.
So my eldest, she's 11,
Yes.
she's just starting to get a sense of the internet. We're trying to
Oh,
keep
yes,
her off social media.
absolutely.
But that being said, I mean, she gets these emails, already solicitations, and many of them, fair companies that are
Exactly.
appropriately targeting an 11-year-old.
Sure,
But that
sure.
being said, you start clicking and who knows?
That's right. That's
So
right.
talk to us about phishing expeditions.
Well, this is usually the best way that people will obtain personal information, and you want to always, always protect your personal information on your computers, on your smartphones. Don't have any clues about your social security number. When you develop passwords, be sure that they are really, really strong
Just
passwords.
tell you, passwords, they are the bane of my existence.
Yes, they are. So don't
mean-
use any numbers from your social security number for your password or your address or any identifying information.
Now, as I said, I, for example, have a small banking account for my daughter,
Yes.
A college account, for example. What do I do vis-a-vis the bank accounts? I do get monthly statements,
Yes.
and candidly, I don't really look at them
Yes.
because we haven't put money in the account, but maybe I should.
What you want to do is always, always look at your statements, particularly credit card statements. Be sure that there are no charges that have been made fraudulently, any unauthorized charges, and if your bills don't arrive on time, definitely that's an alert.
Oh, can
for
I
you.
tell you, I just keep thinking, I had over $2,000 of charges at a gas station in Wisconsin made on my credit
Yes,
card.
yes. And,
$2,000.
I've had similar experiences, parking charges, theater tickets, that kind of thing, where someone's obtained my credit card information. And sometimes shopping online, there's a lot of exchange of personal information.
Right.
Some of the sites may not be as secure
Right.
as they should be.
Now, there is one area, we know about these do not call lists.
Yes.
And there have been some issues with them, but they seem to be fairly tight. In terms of credit cards, we can stop receiving these pre-approved credit offers. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
For our kids or our children.
That's correct.
And
That's correct.
so I guess there's a website, optoutprescreen.com.
That's
There's
right.
some telephone numbers, which is protective. As a general proposition, be it for yourself, for your child, should we be screening our credit reports?
Absolutely. It's always good practice to check your credit reports, and you are actually able to do that for free. You're entitled to one free credit report every year from each of the three national
Really?
credit bureaus.
Do you know how we do that? Do we just contact them?
You
It's
just
that simple?
contact them. You can order your free credit reports by calling a toll-free number, or just go online and go to www.annualcreditreport.com.
Oh, that's easy.
And that is a great way to be sure that there are no fraudulent charges, and just to monitor your activity.
If we are a victim of identity theft, or if our child is a victim, is it worth contacting our local law enforcement, California Department of Justice? I mean, you feel like,
Absolutely, because
It
this may
is.
be part of a larger attempt to
true.
obtain identities on a more massive scale, so it's always good to contact local officials.
in our final moments, I want to talk to you about your race for controller. And the reason I ask is you do represent a quarter of the state already.
Yes.
So you have traveled a very significant distance, but now you're traveling up and down the state.
Yes.
And I want to get a sense from you, what are your constituents saying to you?
Yeah.
What are their hopes and dreams,
Yes.
their fears?
You know, obviously California is still recovering from the Great Recession.
Right.
And I have to say that as I travel up and down the state, we have tremendous residents in the state who just really want to continue to make a go of it here. And so many families are struggling, many are still unemployed, and many are without health insurance.
Right.
And so they're struggling in terms of those three
But-
things, but they're really trying hard, and they want their government to work for them.
Do you have a sense that Californians feel, believe that we have turned a corner? Because the data suggests we have,
Yes.
but is it being felt?
You know, I think there are signs of hope, and Californians feel hopeful. That's why they're staying here. They're trying to ride out the
Right.
storm. But even though the state itself is turning a corner in terms of our
Right.
budgetary fiscal problems,
Sure.
we still see many families up and down the state who are struggling, looking for work. Yeah.
Her name is Betty Yee. She is a member of the Board of Equalization in California, candidate for controller. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Alison Arngrim. You know her from Little House on the Prairie. She's become a political activist supporting the rights of children. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Charter California Edition.
How often do credit reports detect cases of child identity theft?
Welcome back to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. I am so glad that she is back. She is Alison Arngrim. You know her from Little House on the Prairie, Nellie Oleson, the iconic series from 1974 to 1983. Just wrote a book. It is just going gangbusters, called, you say it.
It's great. I think it's the title that is why the sales are
Yes.
still good. Confessions of a Prairie Bitch.
Oh my.
How I Survived Nellie Oleson and Learned to Love Being Hated.
And there's no doubt that it is quite a read, and it is just doing extremely well. #2 on Amazon, #1 on this and on that. But what's interesting is that your survival playing Nellie Oleson was but one element of your life with which you had to survive. Before playing Nellie, you were faced with really a horror show.
Well, in a way, what's so crazy is that playing Nellie Oleson, playing this terrible bitchy
Right.
girl who just did whatever she wanted, was kind of how I survived. Before I was on the show, I was abused as a child, like millions of people. I got left at home with the wrong person, and I got physically and indeed sexually abused.
Right.
And I was very shy as a child as a result of this. I bullied in school because I was shy and awkward, and these are also, red flags. And
Right.
everything that could possibly be wrong was wrong. And I was auditioning for things and getting little parts. And then I get Little House on the Prairie, and instead of playing one of these sweet, darling girls, I'm this horrible girl who everyone's afraid of.
Right. How
And
interesting.
suddenly,
Oh, right.
I was someone who scared people, so I didn't have to be so afraid anymore. It was really quite incredible.
And what is so cathartic about that is that literally you may have been abused from 6 to 11, but the moment that you were able to take on that new persona, that
Right,
new
I was
Alison
abused from
came
like
out.
6 to 9, and
Oh,
then I was
no.
like I was working, I did a movie when I was 10, Little House, 11, 12 years old.
Okay.
When you're a teenager, you have a lot of angst and you're angry all the time anyway. I had all of this rage I was sitting on, and here I'm playing a character where they're saying, break everything in the room, throw this vase at this person's head, hit people, scream, yell. I mean, I was letting it all out. My blood pressure is fabulous.
I can only imagine. Now, what's also fabulous, if I may say, is that you have chosen to speak out.
Yeah.
And you've been speaking out for decades. You are very involved with the National Association to Protect Children, known as Protect. The website protect.org. Please sign on. How did you get involved in Protect?
Well, I found out about them when they first started. It's like, okay, we've been talking about this for years. What if there was a lobby? What if there were people who went to Washington, went to the state capitol, and everyone has a lobby. Everybody has the guys in the suits with the briefcases stalking the halls saying, come on, pass this law, don't pass this law. But children, we say children don't vote, they don't make political contributions.
Right. No lobby.
Right. Everyone says they love children, but when push comes to shove and there's millions of dollars in the budget at stake, they don't necessarily pass the laws that are in favor of protecting children, because what are they going to do about it? But what if there were people who were going in and saying, no, you have to pass this, or we're going to play hardball politics and make you pass this? What if that happened? And here were people who were doing this. So I said, sign me up. And so I'm a founding board member,
Right.
technically. I've been on the board since 2003.
And for better or for worse, the fact that it's you has power. I mean,
I
you could say
wasn't
a
going to
lot-
go. Yeah, I wasn't going to go public. I mean,
Right.
I wasn't going to go public about being abused. It was, I talked to my therapist, my friends. But when push came to shove in California, when we're doing what we call the Circle of Trust bill, changing the laws about incest offenders, people who were sexually abusing children, who were getting this free pass and saying, well, you don't need to really go to jail because it was your own kid. It's insanity. When we had to go and fight for that bill, which we did get passed,
Right.
I wound up, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? So I wound up being outed about this on the Senate floor in Sacramento. And I said, well, if this is going to help, I'll talk about it. So I wound up going on Larry King, Indeed, and talking about what happened to me, what's happened to millions of people, happened to many of my friends, and how this is happening all the time and is not being treated the same as people who are sexually abused by strangers. It's just wrong.
You said this to me. If someone abuses the next door neighbor, they go away for 20 years. If
Or
someone
more,
abuses,
depending what state they're in.
Right.
Yeah.
If someone abuses a child in the house in which they live, it's a wobbler.
Absolutely. In many, many states, it's still in effect. We've changed it in North Carolina and Arkansas and Illinois and California and New York. But in many, many states, people would plead to a lesser offense. They were being charged with, rape of a child, and they could say, well, I want to plead to incest, a crime against
That's
the
a
marital
lesser
state.
offense. Incest was a
Oh,
lesser
yes,
offense.
because it was consensual incest, as if it were amongst adults.
Oh my.
As if they were pleading to adultery. And they were doing this. And in some states, they actually saw it as therapeutic. They felt it was bad to send this person who had raped their child to jail. So they had a special loophole for them that they could plead to and not actually incur any prison time at all.
But you've decided to continue the fight.
Yeah, we've managed to successfully change
Right.
that in many states. We've also been very successful on the federal level in getting funding for the Internet Crimes Against Children
Right.
Task Force and all of these people, the law enforcement agencies that are actually tracking the people who are trafficking children, who are trafficking in child pornography and doing all these vile things.
And over the summer, you went back to Sacramento.
Yes.
You are serious about this. You are not mincing words. You worked with Senator Fran Pavley,
Wonderful person.
who has worked tirelessly to promote the well-being of children. Tell us about the bill which you supported this summer. Many bills you've supported, but this one, it's known as SB 145.
You know, when my phone rings and it's Protect and they say, can you go to Sacramento and talk to these people? Yes, I can. What
course.
time would you like me to be
Right,
there?
yes.
So of course I went, and I was very pleased. Yeah, Senator Pavley, she's really wonderful what she did. This was very incredible. She really also knew her stuff because it has to do with penalties for possession of child pornography. And what a lot of people don't realize, and she did, is there's a huge disparity between state law and federal law. When you see people on TV going to jail for child pornography, they almost always were arrested under federal law. They're going to go for 10 years, for 20 years. People, if they're under a state law, it may only be a misdemeanor.
How?
I don't know.
How is that
Right. How
possible?
is that possible? Child pornography is a misdemeanor in many states. In some states, it's considered like an infraction. The penalties may be 6 months, a year, 2 years. This upped it in cases where something might be 3 years. This would say
Right,
no,
so
no,
tell
make
us
it
about
6.
SB 45. What does it do?
One of the things, it increases the penalties. And initially you look at it and say, well, this is not a large increase in penalties. But it talks about something that's been happening in child pornography, in these images, that is very important to have in the definition that really wasn't there. Everything has gotten bigger, faster, worse, etc. People who sexually abuse children and film it and photograph, put it on the web, it's worse. The children are much younger. People have many, many more images and videos of these crimes. The attacks on the children are much more violent. And in SB 145, they talk about people who have images of children under 10, people who have more than 600 images, people who have
How about 6 images? I mean,
Oh yeah,
why
that's
is there a
considered.
need?
And most people they arrest have things like 100,000 images. They have thousands of images. And the images are very violent. This talks about the aggravated circumstances of very young children and of the extreme sadomasochistic violent images where the children are being tortured.
What's so stunning about the fact that this bill passed and was signed by the governor is that California, as you know, is in the midst of a prison overcrowding
Absolutely.
crisis. And the governor has been very firm that we cannot increase penalties at this time. As heinous as any crime may be, we don't have the resource to do it.
And that's why I'm so pleased in the middle of this real budget crisis, this prison crisis, that they said, yeah, but we are passing some laws. And they did. They passed several laws that actually did add penalties to things. And so we said, and Senator Pavley saw this, and people in Sacramento saw this, yes, we have a problem here. How many things can we pass if they're going to increase sentencing? This is important. This is a priority.
But there are
this
so
is
many
children being
things
raped and tortured.
that are important. So many things, and yet this stood out. This was the one that went to the top of the pile and got signed.
Somebody got their priorities straight.
Well, but I hear you. Don't get me wrong. As the father of 2 daughters, I get it. But how does that make you feel to know that your voice, amongst many, was heard and got to the top of the pile?
I'm pleased because, as I said, it's people realizing the seriousness of it. There were other bills passed during that period that did increase sentencing for certain crimes. So it wasn't a complete moratorium.
Right, but many
But
got
they were
vetoed.
being very selective.
Right.
So if it's not a complete moratorium and you are passing some, to then say, but children, we'll back burner that. No,
No such
the
luck.
fact that that has changed enough, that people saw this as important and moved it to the front of the pile, yes, I'm very, very pleased.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank
She
you.
is Alison Arngrim. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on Charter California Edition.
How many websites around the globe feature sexually exploited minors?
Welcome back. It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Scott Svonkin, he is the vice president, am I right, of
Yes.
the Los Angeles Community College District. He's also the president of the Los Angeles
County School Trustees Association.
Got it. And there is also an organization called the Los Angeles County Office of Education. Now, in some counties, there's an elected superintendent.
Correct.
In Los Angeles County, there is not. That person is appointed
by the the County Board of Education.
I understand. Now, I received a letter recently, and I was quite surprised by it. And what this letter says is that the Los Angeles County Office of Education is severing its relationship with the Los Angeles County School Trustees Association. Why would that happen?
Well, you know, it came as a shock to me after 76 years that the superintendent, Dr. Delgado, would send us such a letter.
Right.
It comes on the heels of LACCD having 3 very successful years. 2 years ago, we were the first education organization in the state to step up in favor of Prop 30 early on, so that we supported the tax initiative by Governor Brown to help revigorate and energize schools across the state. Last year, we supported mental health centers and healthcare on each campus, health centers on campuses.
Right.
And this year, we took the step of supporting sensible gun control across the county.
And let's be specific, because we've spoken about it before in our program. There had been classes sponsored and taught by the NRA at one of your colleges, Pierce College in Woodland Hills. Others? Harper, maybe?
Harper also.
Right. And the LA Community College District decided to prohibit guns on campuses.
Correct.
No specific reference to the NRA, but that's really was the impetus behind it.
The fact that the community spoke out, I responded, and we banned guns on all of our campuses. Now, as president of LACCD, I led the effort with other trustees from other campuses to urge both Congress and the state legislature to implement sensible gun control, and to also work on mental health for students that need mental health services.
So it was the LA Community College District that took the step.
Well, no, I led the effort first at the LA Community College, and then I, with the support of every school trustee on the executive board of LACCD, voted unanimously to support a resolution in support of sensible gun control and intervening in mental health early.
Okay, so it is your view, your position, your belief that as a result of that stance, the Los Angeles County Office of Education severed its relationship.
Well, we're in discussions right now to continue the relationship. It is a 76-year relationship, but we did receive the letter from Superintendent Delgado based on the fact that we took what was a fairly simple position on gun control. He sent us this letter and said he was concerned about us taking political positions, legislative positions, separate from the LA County Office of Education and the LA County Board of Education. Now, I have to tell you, our vote in support of sensible gun control and mental health services for students was unanimous. Not one trustee on our executive board.
How many trustees on the executive board?
We have about 15 members, and
Now,
every single one of them supported it.
The letter doesn't reference gun control.
It represents legislation.
Right. So, how do you know that?
Because that was the only action that legislative action we've taken since I've been president this time. This is my second term as president, and the first term we supported Prop 30, and this time we supported sensible gun control. And the letter references our legislative activism, and I'm not sure being in support of funding for public education and sensible gun control is activism.
What caused this? Something must have happened.
You know, as far as we can tell, the superintendent was concerned about us taking positions different than LACO and the LA County Board of Education.
That can't be it. That can't be the only reason this happened.
I have to believe what he wrote and what he's told our members.
He had to have been pressured. I mean, this just doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, the only people that would be concerned about our most recent action is the NRA. And if he's responding to the National Rifle Association as the highest ranking superintendent in LA County, something's wrong here.
I mean, we are in Los Angeles County, and I do think as a general proposition, Los Angeles County residents, they support the Second Amendment.
Right. So do I.
In the most basic sense.
Yes.
But I think they're also strong supporters of, as you call it, sensible gun control legislation. I don't, it just seems odd to me. I would expect this to come from maybe Houston or New Orleans. I would not expect this action out of Los Angeles County. I'm not saying I support it or not. It just seems odd.
It's very odd. Myself and all the past presidents of LACCD were shocked because we have 76 years of partnership. And now, after one action referenced in the letter, the superintendent. Now, I'm very optimistic. Superintendent Delgado has said that he believes there may be a path to us continuing our relationship.
But he sent this letter. I mean,
it was a shot across.
Yeah,
it was a shot across the bow.
Did you know it was coming?
No, I did not, and I was disappointed that as president he hadn't communicated directly with me.
Well, why have the relationship then? I mean, if they don't want to play, fine.
Well, our members believe that because we are the only organization with K-12 and community colleges combined across the state, LACCD is unique. There are other districts that have similar, but we are the largest. Our members believe that that partnership's important. And as president of the organization, I take my direction from our elected trustees.
Do you know if the NRA is aware of this action?
You know, I don't know if the NRA weighed in on this, weighed in on our resolution, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Where do you go from here? I mean, you say there's a path. What, are you supposed to rescind your resolution? I don't understand how you resolve this issue. I mean, in a lot of ways, you know, one could argue that it's a bit, again, I don't know all the background, but just on the surface, on the face, it seems a bit threatening. You know, there's maybe, it smacks of censorship. I don't know how you unring the bell.
Well, I'm hopeful that with the help of our leaders, that they've met with Superintendent Delgado.
But you're the leader. You're the president.
I am, and unfortunately, he and I have not been able to get together yet. But I'm hopeful that we'll sit down, that he will give us more time because the end of the year is his deadline, which
but
only.
What is he? I mean, what does he want?
I think he wants to make sure that there's a clear delineation. This is what he says. He wants a clear delineation between LACCD position and the LA County Board and LA County Office of Education's position.
So that's not so hard.
It's
I mean,
not.
Why does he think that the position taken on the gun control question somehow implicates the LA County Office of Education? I mean, did the press release say LACCD and the LA County Office of Education?
It did not. I have to take his letter on its face value, and he has a concern about protecting LACO and the Board of Education for the county. I think our action on behalf of the students across this county to urge the legislature to pass sensible gun control was the right thing to do. I'm happy to discuss that with him, and I hope to have the opportunity to sit down and work this out like two men, two adults. I was disheartened and disappointed that he would send us this letter.
So where do you go from here? I mean, do you work with the LA County Board of Education, which is not elected?
Right.
It's an odd beast. You know, in Riverside County, San Bernardino County, they're elected, the superintendents. You know,
well, that raises an important question: is that
could he even do this?
I don't know if he has the legal authority. I think that if he has the support of the Board of Education, he does.
Who appoints the Board of Education?
The Board of Supervisors.
And then they appoint the superintendent.
Correct.
Should we be electing a countywide superintendent?
I think so. I think the fact is that every member of the LACCD board is elected by their community. We then are elected by the membership of the school board members from across the county. We are all elected officials. He is an appointed official taking a position on public policy that was unanimous on our board. I think that we will be able to work this out, but I hope that he doesn't try to silence us.
His name is Scott Svonkin. He is the Vice President of the Los Angeles Community College District. He is the President of the Los Angeles County School Trustees Association. My name is Brad Pomerance, Charter, California Edition.